At the end of the 2022 NBA regular season, the Houston Rockets finished with the worst record in the NBA at 20-62, which means they finished with the worst record in 2 consecutive seasons, because last year they were the worst team as well. But this doesn't mean there were no improvements or that there's nothing to build off of. I mean, clearly the win-loss ratio barely changed, but they have established some sort of direction. For instance, by sitting a former All-Star and a respected veteran in John Wall for the whole season, they were able to spread minutes between the young talent. And then as far as their draft picks, Jalen Green may have started the year slow, but he still managed to make Rockets history by dropping a rookie record 8 threes and qualified for first team All-Rookie. So yeah, basically, despite the back-to-back seasons of being the worst team, the Rockets are actually in the middle of a decent rebuilding process. And in this video, we're just going to talk about what's next for them as the draft approaches, the offseason approaches, and as moves begin to be made. But anyway, really quick before I go any further, what's up YouTube? Plug Speaks back with a vid. If you're new, first of all, welcome. Go ahead and sub. Also like the vid if you enjoy it. I upload quality basketball content and we're currently grinding for 5K, so I most definitely appreciate it. But back to the vid though. So the Rockets are approaching something that's a pretty big deal for teams in their situation, the NBA draft. And most of this sort of off-season prediction video is gonna be draft related, because obviously the Rockets aren't out here trying to sign some huge star in free agency as if they need one more piece before they can really pursue a championship. Nah, it's pretty clear that their focus seems to be developing the young players, giving it some time, and just moving on from there. Therefore, the fact that they've got a top 3 pick in this upcoming NBA draft is a pretty big deal. And currently, ESPN and a lot of the mainstream draft projections and mock drafts got them taking Paolo Banchero with the 3rd pick. So I'm looking at the Rockets offseason as if this is what's going to happen. And if this does happen, there's going to be a lot for Rockets fans to look forward to. See, Paolo Banchero was someone who's good enough to be the 1st pick. And in saying that, I mean, no one's really going to clown the Orlando Magic if they took him number 1 overall, because he's good enough. But the projections, they got him at 3rd, meaning the Rockets had the chance to land someone who's an incredible talent and who I personally believe to be one of the safer picks in the draft. Even if this guy doesn't become a star, I see him becoming a quality role player. I mean, for one, he's a product of Duke, coached by the legendary Coach K, and the list of Duke alumni that go on to perform well in the league it's way too official. I mean, from Zion to Jason Tatum to Kyrie to RJ Barrett and plenty more. Duke doesn't produce many busts. But yeah, now as far as a brief description, Banchero's a 6'10 forward with experience being a team's primary scorer while also providing quality defense. In the 39 games he played for Duke, he put up averages of about 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and a block on 48% shooting from the field and 34% shooting from 3. And when it comes to his play style, a lot of his points come from all around the court. He's not restricted to the paint, the mid-range, or the perimeter, which is a great thing, but it also might make his fit into the roster a little questionable. It might take some trial and error. And I say this because he's big enough to play center, but I don't see him in that role because his game doesn't cater to that. If anything, he's really in that gray area of the forward position, where you got guys like Giannis who dominate the paint, but also guys like PG-13 who score a lot on the perimeter, and yet they both play the forward position. And Paolo, he recognizes this. Matter of fact, these were his own words when asked about who he'd compare himself to on NBA lottery night.
There's a lot of guys. I would say there's a couple that I really try and take things away from, whether that's LeBron, Jason Tatum, Giannis, Carmelo, just guys who got similar physical build. But I also feel like I'm unique in my own ways, and I feel like I take parts of all their games and try and put it into mine, and I add my own flavor to it. So I couldn't give you one player, but I definitely am inspired by some of those guys.
So yeah, overall, his fit into the team could be seen as questionable. But the good thing is, the Rockets, they didn't really have an established starting lineup this past season. I mean, outside of KPJ, Christian Wood, Jalen Green, and even Jayshawn Tate. A lot of their players had a general mix of games started and games coming off the bench, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. But anyway, moving on to another large part of what's next for the Rockets is figuring out how far they believe in KPJ to take the leap. You know, it's no secret that Kevin Porter Jr.'s young NBA career thus far has been all over the place. From being drafted by the Bucks to getting traded to Cleveland to having his reputation stained over a locker room incident and to him now seemingly have found a home with the Rockets. You know, he's been there for 2 seasons. The only issue is that his performance this past season was pretty underwhelming based on what he showed in the 2021 season. See, last season he put up averages of 16 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds in a limited 23 games for the Rockets. And in one of those games, he dropped a crazy 50-point double-double in a comeback win where he hit 9 threes. So yeah, a lot of people expected this 2022 season to be some sort of ascension and for him to continue where he left off, you know, maybe average 20, but instead his averages went down all across the board outside of his 3-point shooting, and that's not a great look. I mean, he's a 6'4" guard, so for him to go out and shoot 64% on free throws this past season, which is down from 73% in the 2021 season, it's just not a great look. Now, of course, he's still early in his career. He turned 22 literally this month, and the potential for the Rockets to one day have one of the top backcourt duos in the league between him and Jalen Green is still a possibility. All I'm saying is that the Rockets will be setting themselves up if they don't at least consider a scenario where KPJ just maybe doesn't turn out as planned as far as living up to the glimpses of stardom he's shown so far. Because he's definitely shown some incredible scoring ability. I mean, the tween hezzies, it just hasn't been consistent. And because of that, the 2023 season will be big for him. You see, in the summer of 2023, this man is a restricted free agent. So it'll truly be on the Rockets' hands as to whether or not they want to see him through in his development. But anyway, speaking of contracts, the Rockets are also on the cusp of having to make a pretty big decision surrounding Christian Wood. In the summer of 2023, Christian Wood becomes an unrestricted free agent, and he is not someone you want to let walk in free agency. With averages of 18 and 10 on some really efficient shooting percentages, he's one of the Rockets' better players, and he's gonna be looking for his bag. He's gonna want to get paid. But anyway, I'm fixing to wrap this video up. Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. What do you think the Rockets should focus on as they approach this offseason? I mean, who should they select in the draft? Is Paolo Banchero the one? Drop y'all thoughts below, and yeah, I appreciate y'all watching. As always, like the sub, share it, sub if new, all of that, and I'm out.